When the world is in danger, only one man can save humanity. One man who is the Duke of Danger. The Duke of Action. The Duke of Destruction. And the Duke of Dynamite. No, wait. His name's Dynamite Duke. And with an intro like that, you obviously cannot take this game seriously. Dynamite Duke is a 1989 arcade run-and-gun action game made by Saibu Kaihatsu with a gameplay format similar to that of Cabal. Players assume the titular character, who goes around shooting, punching and kicking enemies from a behind-the-back perspective across several different stages, as they attempt to stop a rebel army from unleashing mutant abominations across the world. Sporting more of a much closer third-person perspective than Cabal, the game really sees you take control of a gun crosshair as you move it across the screen. The character just gets dragged along with it. But as you control the character to avoid bullets, punches and various other attacks from the enemy, when you are finally ready to start shooting, the crosshair is always way out of position. It is a real oddity, this game. The visuals, even for 1989, are bang average. The sound is fairly mediocre, but saying that, this game did stand out in most arcades, as it didn't look like most other games. Most shooting games of this ilk were like Operation Wolf, where you actually used a replica gun fixed to the cabinet to shoot enemies. This one used a joystick, and when compared to Cabal, which by the way is probably the closest thing to this kind of game that I can remember, it didn't have any option to cover. All you could do was duck to avoid enemy fire, and not only that, this is scrolled, where Cabal was a fixed screen. Dynamite Duke scrolls along at this very slow pace as enemies just appear from everywhere and take brightly coloured potshots at you. The other standout from this game was the option to buy life at the end of a level. For just one more additional credit, you could top up your life bar. It was like a microtransaction before microtransactions were a thing. And a rip-off, as almost every other game just topped up your life bar for free at the start of a new level. But saying all of this, I still had a few goes on this in the arcades. This was one of the machines that was way in the back of Joker's Amusements in Paisley, right in the sticky carpet section where less profitable games go to die and be forgotten. It looked so cheesy, but at the same time looked like it could be a right laugh. So of course, it was worth a go. Visually, I thought the game looked pretty awful. I mean, that transparent hole in the back looks weird. And I know it's there so you can see the crosshairs when shooting down low, but it just looks awful. And the character has this blue hue about him. What the heck is that all about? Some of the enemies, however, actually look pretty good, with some not bad animation on the ninjas, but everything has this generic feel about it. And while enemies can jump out of the background to the foreground towards Duke, no sprite scaling was used. It was just larger sprites, and so when they jump out at you, it doesn't look all that smooth at all. The backgrounds are incredibly dull, boring, bland, and it might be something to do with the setting of the game, but everything looks flat and lifeless. It's quite depressing. Although some background damage can appear from time to time to liven up the look. but it's still not that impressive. The map screens between levels look like rejected maps from Scramble from the early 80s. They are pretty hideous. The sound is incredibly average, the tunes are pretty annoying, and the quality of the sound is below par. The death cry sounds screechy, and at other times it sounds like a dog barking, and the punching sounds like a dog making a woof noise. The gun effects sound like a bad sample from a 70s movie. It's all pretty dire, if I'm being honest. The gameplay is what saves this game in my opinion. It's strangely enjoyable. Look, it's not as good as Cabal or Operation Wolf, but it has an endearing charm about it. And this style of game was not all that common. The combination of shooting and punching and kicking, while sliding left and right, did actually make for an enjoyable, if short, gaming experience. When I played it in Jokers, I said to my mate it was a bit like Marmite, but you know what? The following week I had another go, and the same the week later. It was weird. It was a bad game, but a bad game that was actually enjoyable and addictive. After a few weeks I did eventually stop playing it, but as my mate enjoyed it as well, I decided I would pick up a second-hand copy on the Megadrive. If I could get it for a few quid, then it would be a worthwhile purchase in my opinion. I picked up a Japanese import copy for £5, a real bargain. Kinda makes you wonder how much the store paid the poor sod trading it in. £1 perhaps? Anyway, when I got it home, I immediately started to recognise all of that cheesiness of the arcade game, and actually, I thought the port of this game was pretty good. It was pretty close to the arcade in fact. Visually the graphics are still pretty bad, and the Mega Drive done a good job of creating those bad graphics, but for a Mega Drive game it did look pretty good. The sound as well was faithfully recreated, so it was pretty bad as well, but again, not bad for a Mega Drive game. The playability was the same as well, but there was a little surprise. This game was much shorter than the arcade version, by about 3 levels or so, and the game was so much easier as well. I completed it in my very first shot, and then when I handed the joypad to my mate, he completed it on his first shot as well. But just like the arcade, I kept returning to this game quite a few times over the weeks, as it was still strangely addictive, just like the arcade machine. And after a few weeks, my desire to play the game had been satiated, and I stopped playing it. Now, I did only pay £5 for the game, and so I thought it was worthless trading it in, as I would get nothing or next to nothing. So what do you do with a game that is worthless? Well, you do the only decent thing. You sell it to a mate who doesn't know any better. A mate of mine said his stupid mate had just got a Megadrive for Christmas 1991 and was looking to buy some good second-hand games. And seeing as he had a Japanese adapter, he could play imported games. So I told him I had a few games to sell. And when he came round to my house, I showed him this. And thankfully, he had never seen any of the reviews in any magazines. So I told him he could have it for £20. And then I expected a wee bit of back and forth, a wee bit of haggling. I mean, you know how it goes, right? But then he just said, deal. And I made £15 on the game. Now that's a result. Now some might say that I was wrong and that I ripped off a mate of a mate. But my take on it is like this. Someone will pay what they think something is worth. And he thought it was worth £20. So who was I to argue? Today, I still have many of my Super Nintendo games I bought as a kid. They are still boxed and in storage in my home. The same goes for my Neo Geo and my PlayStation and so forth. But I have no Mega Drive games, other than a Jap version of Strider, Altered Beast, Streets of Rage 2 and Super Shinobi 2. As I had to sell off a lot of my Mega Drive games when I was younger to buy Super NES games. It's a decision I do kind of have regrets about today, especially seeing the value in a lot of these games. But selling Dynamite Duke for a £15 profit was not one of those regrettable decisions at all. It was good for a few goes, but it's not a game you would really come back to an awful lot once you beat it. But I would recommend anyone to give it a go on either the arcade or the Mega Drive, if you have the ability to do so. And that was my look back at Dynamite Duke. If you liked this video, then please do give me a sub and a thumbs up, or maybe even a comment or two about your memories of Dynamite Duke on any format. And a massive thank you from me to all of you who have subscribed and commented on my channel. Your feedback and support really does go a long way in helping the channel to grow, and I do appreciate all of the comments, so thank you from me. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.